The state's most famous author was there to write about it. She would spend a year in town investigating the case, and many more turning it into prose. The mystery in the courtroom that day was what would become of the man who shot the Reverend Willie Maxwell. But for decades after the verdict, the mystery was what became of Harper Lee's book. Part 1. The Reverend. Chapter 1. Divide the waters from the waters. Enough water, like enough time, can make anything disappear. 100 years ago, in the place presently occupied by the largest lake in Alabama, there was a region of hills and hollers and hardscrabble communities with a pretty little river running through it. The Tallapoosa River forms where a creek named McClendon meets a creek named Mud, after each of them has trickled down from the Appalachian foothills of Georgia. Until it was damned into obedience, the Tallapoosa just kept on trickling from there, lazing downward until it met its older, livelier sibling, the Coosa River, near the town of Wetumpka, where together the two streams became the Alabama River, which continued westward and southward until it spilled into Mobile Bay, and from there into the Gulf of Mexico. For 265 miles and millions of years, the Tallapoosa carried on like that, serenely genuflecting its way to the sea. What put an end to this was power. Man's dominion over the earth might have been given to him in Genesis, but he began acting on it in earnest in the 19th century. Steam engines and steel and combustion of all kinds provided the means. Manifest destiny provided the motive. Within a few decades, humankind had come to understand nature as its enemy in what the philosopher William James called, approvingly, the moral equivalent of war. This was especially true in the American South, where an actual war had left behind physical and financial devastation and liberated the enslaved men and women who had been the region's economic engine. No longer legally able to subjugate other people, wealthy white Southerners turned their attention to nature instead. The untamed world seemed to them at worst like a mortal danger, seething with disease and constantly threatening disaster, and at best, like a terrible waste. The numberless trees could be timber, the forests could be farms, the malarial swamps could be drained and turned to solid ground, wolves and bears and other fearsome predators could be throw rugs, taxidermy, and dinner. And as for the rivers, why should they get to play while people had to work? In the words of the president of the Alabama Power Company, Thomas Martin, every loafing stream is loafing at the public expense. By the turn of the century, hydroelectric power had become the hope of the South, as factories that had run off men and mules were mechanized and light bulbs flickered on in homes that had known nothing but candlelight and kerosene. Suddenly, every river below the Mason-Dixon line was being eyed in terms of cubic feet per second and kilowatts per hour. In 1912, some scouts from Alabama Power borrowed a Winton 6 automobile from a local woman and drove with her around the Tallapoosa River basin, searching for a site that could accommodate a large-scale dam. They settled on Cherokee Bluffs, a gorge lined by 200-foot cliffs of gneiss and granite, with the same solid rock laid down along the riverbed. So ideal was the location that other power companies had already tried to build a dam there twice. The first attempt, in 1896, was thwarted by an outbreak of yellow fever, which made financiers afraid to visit. The second, in 1898, by the outbreak of the Spanish-American War, which left investors unwilling to gamble their money on an infrastructure project at the back of Beyond. But Alabama Power arrived at Cherokee Bluffs during the boom years of the early 20th century, when there was finally enough financial backing to begin buying up the land around it.